The chamber was silent except for the soft hum of translation devices. Dozens of species sat in curved rows, their eyes fixed on the center platform where history was about to change forever. Commander Sierra Vance stood alone at the human delegation's podium. She was not a tall woman, not by the standards of most galactic species. The towered over her by nearly 3 feet. There were twice her mass. Even the small delegates came up to her chest. By every measure that mattered to the galactic conquered, she should have been afraid. She was not afraid. Ambassador of the Dominion clicked his mandibles in what humans had learned to recognize as contempt. His black compound eyes reflected the chamber lights like wet stones. He had been speaking for nearly an hour, listing humanity's crimes against galactic order, their unauthorized expansion, their refusal to pay tribute, their insulting belief that they deserved a seat at this table. "The humans," said his translator, turning his clicks and hisses into cold words, "are vermin. They crawled out of their death world barely 2 centuries ago. They have no history, no culture worth preserving, no place among the elder races." Sierra Vance did not react. She had heard worse. She had survived worse. "The Dominion demands the immediate withdrawal of all human presence from the corridor," continued. "We demand the surrender of your colony ships. We demand tribute payments for the next 1,000 years. And we demand a formal apology from your species for the insult of believing yourselves our equals." The chamber murmured. Some species nodded in agreement. Others watched with curiosity. The delegation, seated behind kept their faces carefully blank. Sierra Vance waited until the room was quiet again. Then she spoke. "No." The word was simple, small. It echoed in the chamber like a gunshot. His mandibles stopped clicking. His compound eyes seemed to focus more sharply on the human woman. Around him, his guards shifted their weight, hands moving toward weapons. "I must have misheard," said slowly. "Did you just refuse the demands of the Dominion?" "I did," Vance said. Her voice was calm, almost friendly. "The corridor is legally open territory under conquered law. Our colonies are legitimate. We owe you nothing." She paused and tilted her head slightly. "But I am prepared to offer a counter-proposal. The Dominion and the Terran Union could establish shared trade routes. We could exchange cultural delegations. We could work together instead of against each other. There is room in this galaxy for both our peoples." For a moment nothing happened, then began to laugh. It was an ugly sound like stones grinding together. "You stand before the conquered, representative of a species that has existed for the blink of an eye, and you dare to offer us partnership." He stepped forward, his massive form casting a shadow over Vance's podium. "Your people have forgotten their place. Allow me to remind you." His hand moved faster than most eyes could follow. The ceremonial at his hip was suddenly in his grip, barrel aimed directly at Vance's chest. The weapon hummed with power, traveled at 3 times the speed of sound. At this range, the projectile would tear through the human woman and continue through the wall behind her. Several delegates screamed. Others dove for cover. The guards surged forward, but they were too slow. Everyone was too slow. "Pulled the trigger." They left the barrel in a flash of superheated air. It crossed the distance to Vance in less than a heartbeat. The sound of its passage was like tearing silk. And then something impossible happened. Sierra Vance moved. Her hand came up in a blur that left afterimages in the air. Her fingers closed around something. And then she was standing exactly where she had been before, her arm extended, her posture unchanged. Steam rose from her palm. The smell of burned flesh and ozone filled the chamber. Between her thumb and forefinger she held It glowed cherry red from the heat of its passage. Her skin was blackened where it touched the metal. She did not seem to notice. The chamber was absolutely silent. Every eye was fixed on the human woman. Every translator had stopped working as the beings wearing them forgot to breathe. Sierra Vance looked at for a long moment. She turned it over, examining it like a curious artifact. Then she looked up at. The ambassador had not moved. His weapon was still raised. His compound eyes were very wide. Vance stepped forward. Her boots made soft sounds on the chamber floor. She walked past the frozen guards, past the trembling delegates, until she stood directly in front of. She was barely half his height. She had to look up to meet his eyes. She extended her hand, the resting on her palm. "I believe this is yours." Her voice was quiet, polite, as if she was returning a dropped pen. Did not take the. He could not seem to make his limbs obey him. His mandibles clicked uselessly, producing sounds that his translator could not interpret. Behind him, Warden Captain of the had gone very still. His hand was on his weapon, but he did not draw it. He had heard rumors about humans. Stories passed between soldiers in dark bars on distant stations. He had dismissed them as propaganda, exaggeration, fear. He was no longer sure. Sierra Vance waited another moment. When did not move, she set the gently on the podium beside her. "I think," she said, addressing the chamber now, "that we should take a short break. Emotions are running high. Perhaps some refreshments would help." She turned and walked back to her podium as if nothing had happened, as if she had not just done something that every species in the room knew was impossible, as if she had not just changed everything. High Arbiter, eldest of the conquered, sat in his floating chair and watched the human woman with ancient eyes. He was over 4,000 years old. He had seen empires rise and fall. He had witnessed the birth of the conquered itself. He had never been this frightened. Somewhere in the back of his memory, old warnings stirred. Words from the precursors, carved into stone monuments on dead worlds. Warnings about a species that would come from a death world. A species that would seem weak, that would smile and offer friendship, that would wait and watch and learn. The precursors had called them, and they had left one final warning, one that was only now beginning to understand. Fear not their arrival, fear the day they stop pretending. Across the chamber, monitoring systems recorded everything. Within hours, this footage would spread to every corner of the galaxy. 1 billion species would watch a human woman catch a hypersonic projectile with her bare hand. They would see her smile as she handed it back. And they would wonder, as wondered now, what else the humans had been hiding. The emergency session lasted 14 hours. Delegates screamed at each other. Alliances that had stood for centuries cracked and reformed in real time. 3 species from the conquered entirely. 2 others immediately petitioned for human protection. And through it all, sat in a holding cell, guarded by his own people, demanding to know why he was being treated like a criminal. She used some kind of trick, he insisted to anyone who would listen. Technology, a force field, something. No biological creature can move that fast. It is physically impossible. No one believed him. They had all seen the footage. They had watched it 100 times, slowed down frame by frame. There was no trick, no technology, just a human hand moving faster than their eyes could process, catching a projectile that should have killed her instantly. Commander Sierra Vance was escorted to the human embassy's private quarters on the station. The rooms were small compared to what other species received. Humans were still newcomers. They were supposed to be grateful for whatever scraps they were given. Doctor was waiting for her when she arrived. He was the human cultural, a thin man with graying hair and worried eyes. He had spent 20 years building careful relationships with dozens of species. 20 years of smiling at insults, accepting unfair trade deals, pretending to be weaker than they were. Sierra Vance had just destroyed all of that in 3 seconds. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" asked. His voice was quiet, but his hands were shaking. Vance sat down heavily in a chair. For the first time since the incident, she allowed herself to feel the pain. She looked at her right hand. The palm was badly burned, the skin blackened and cracked. The medical in her blood were already working to repair the damage, but it would take time. "I stopped a war," she said simply. "He was going to kill me. That was the plan. Shoot the human diplomat, show the galaxy that we are weak, and then invade the corridor while everyone was still deciding whose fault it was." Sat down across from her. "And now, what happens now?" "Now they know we are not weak." Vance flexed her burned hand, testing the movement. "Now they have to recalculate." "They are terrified of us," said. "I have received 47 messages in the last hour. 12 are threats. 15 are desperate offers of alliance. The rest are just asking the same question over and over." "What question?" "What else are you hiding?" Vance was quiet for a long moment. Outside the window, the stars turned slowly as the station maintained its orbit. Somewhere out there, human colony ships were spreading through the corridor. Families were building homes. Children were being born on new worlds, all of them depending on the illusion that humans were harmless newcomers who posed no threat to anyone. That illusion was gone now. "We knew this day would come," Vance said finally. "We have been preparing for it since first contact." Laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Preparing? We have been hiding. For 50 years we have been pretending to be something we are not." "And it worked." Vance met his eyes. "We were not ready 50 years ago. We needed time. Time to understand the political landscape. Time to build relationships. Time to position ourselves so that when the truth came out, we would have friends instead of enemies." "Do we have friends now?" "Some. The delegation has already reached out. They want to talk privately." His eyebrows rose. They have been allies for 300 years. "Allies, not friends. There is a difference." Vance stood up and walked to the window. "They treat them like servants. They take the best territories, the best resources, the best trade deals. They smile and accept it because they think they have no other choice. And now they see another choice. Now they see that they are not invincible, that there are other powers in the galaxy, powers that might treat them as equals instead of subordinates." On the other side of the station, High Arbiter made his way through ancient corridors. The conquered archives were deep in the station's core, protected by security systems older than most civilizations. Few beings alive knew how to access them. Even fewer knew what secrets they contained. His floating chair hummed quietly as he descended into the darkness. The lights here had not worked in centuries. He navigated by memory and by the faint glow of his personal shield. The archive was a vast circular room filled with crystalline storage devices. Most were dark, their contents long since decayed, but some still held power, some still remembered. Approached the oldest section, where the crystals dated back to before the Conquered itself, to the time of the precursors, to the age when the architects of galactic civilization still walked among the stars. He found the crystal he was looking for and placed his hand on its surface. Light flowed through his fingers. Images and words and feelings flooded his mind. The precursors had been careful observers. They had every species they encountered, noting their strengths and weaknesses, their potential for growth or destruction. Most species were considered acceptable, manageable, safe. A few were flagged for concern, and one was marked with a warning that had never fully understood until now. Designation: Sol 3 INHA.ENTS. Status: Quarantine Permanent. Threat level: Undefined. The precursors had found humanity long before humans had developed language. They had studied the small primates on their violent, unstable world. They had watched them hunt, watched them fight, watched them survive things that should have killed them. And they had been afraid. Not because humans were the strongest species they had found. Not because humans were the fastest or the most intelligent or the most numerous, but because humans were impossible to predict. They broke rules that other species did not even know existed. They adapted to changes that should have destroyed them. They refused to behave the way evolution said they should. The precursors had decided that humanity was a failed experiment, too dangerous to use, too unpredictable to control. They had locked the humans on their death world and walked away, confident that the planet itself would finish the job. They had been wrong. His hand from the crystal, his ancient heart was beating too fast, his breathing was shallow. The humans had not just survived their quarantine, they had thrived. They had built civilizations, developed technology, reached for the stars. And when they had finally found the wider galaxy, they had not come as conquerors. They had come smiling, pretending to be weak, watching, learning, waiting. For 50 years, the galaxy had patted humanity on the head like a clever pet. For 50 years, they had dismissed the newcomers as harmless. For 50 years, they had never once suspected the truth. The truth that now understood with terrible clarity. Humanity had been hiding, not because they were afraid, but because they were patient, because they understood that the best way to survive in a dangerous universe was to make everyone underestimate you. And now, for the first time, they had shown their hand. Wondered what would happen when they showed the rest. 1 week after the incident, a shuttle landed at the human embassy on 4. It came without announcement, without escort, and without the knowledge of the Dominion. Consul stepped off the shuttle and into the warm afternoon light. He was large even by standards, his gray skin marked with the scars of 100 battles. He had served for 60 years. He had obeyed their orders without question. He had watched his people bow and scrape and accept their place as second-class citizens of the Dominion. He was tired of it. General Myra met him at the landing pad. She was a tall woman with dark skin and silver-streaked hair cut short. Her uniform was simple and functional. No medals, no decorations, nothing to suggest that she commanded the entire Terran expeditionary forces. "Consul," she said, extending her hand, "thank you for coming." Looked at the hand for a moment. Among the physical contact between strangers was considered aggressive. It was beneath dignity. But he had studied human customs. He understood what the gesture meant. He took her hand and shook it. "Thank you for receiving me," he said. "I am taking a considerable risk being here." "I know," gestured toward the embassy building. "Please come inside, we have much to discuss." The embassy was modest compared to the great halls of the crystal towers of the conquered. Simple rooms with simple furniture, nothing to suggest wealth or power or threat. Understood now that this was deliberate. Everything about humanity's presentation to the galaxy had been carefully designed to make them seem smaller than they were. They sat in a private room with windows overlooking the colony below. Human children played in the streets. Human farmers worked in the fields. It looked so ordinary, so peaceful, so harmless. Got directly to the point. "What you showed us on the station," he said, "is it typical or was Commander Vance special?" Did not answer immediately. She stood and walked to a wall display. With a touch, she activated a recording. The image showed a training facility. A squad of human soldiers moved through an obstacle course. They jumped gaps that should have been too wide. They climbed walls that should have been too high. They shrugged off impacts that should have broken bones. One soldier was hit by a simulated explosive and thrown 20 feet. She stood up 3 seconds later and kept running. Watched in silence, his heart beat faster. The recording changed. Now it showed close combat training. Human soldiers faced training drones designed to match combat speeds. The humans were faster. Their movements were fluid, precise, almost beautiful. They dismantled the drones with their bare hands. Another recording, medical data. A human soldier recovering from wounds that should have been fatal. Broken spine, punctured lungs, severe blood loss. 2 weeks later, he was back on active duty. Turned off the display. "Commander Vance," she said quietly, "is retired." Understood what she was not saying. Vance was no longer at peak performance. She was older, slower. The soldiers in the recording were what humanity could produce when they were trying. Hal asked, "How is this possible? Your species has only been in space for 2 centuries. These abilities should take to develop." Sat back down across from him. "We come from a death world," she said. "You know this. Everyone knows this. What they do not understand is what that really means." She leaned forward. "Earth has high gravity, intense radiation, extreme weather, predators on every continent, diseases that mutate faster than we can cure them. Every day of human existence has been a fight for survival. We did not become strong because we chose to. We became strong because the weak died." She paused. "And then we started improving ourselves on purpose. Genetic engineering, cybernetic enhancements, neural implants. For the last 300 years, every generation of humans has been a little faster, a little stronger, a little harder to kill than the one before." Was quiet for a long moment. "They are mobilizing," he said finally. "They plan to attack your colonies within the month. They believe that the incident on the station was a trick, technology, something that can be countered. We know. Their fleet is 300 capital ships strong, thousands of support craft, millions of soldiers. We know." Stared at her, "And you are not concerned." Smiled. It was not a threatening smile. It was almost sad. "Consul, they have bullied the galaxy for 1,000 years. They have crushed every species that stood against them. They believe they are invincible because no one has ever proven otherwise." She stood and walked to the window. "We are not here to crush them. We are not here to become the new bullies. We came to the stars looking for friends, not subjects, but we will not allow our people to be murdered. We will not abandon our colonies, and we will not pretend to be weak anymore." She turned back to face him. "Tell your leaders that they have a choice. They can stand with thee and share their fate, or they can stand with us and help build something better." "Better?" asked. "Better how?" "Equal partnership, shared technology, mutual defense, no tribute, no subordination, no species ruling over another." Thought of his people, 3 centuries as servants, 3 centuries of being told they were lesser, of watching their resources stripped away, of sending their young to die in wars. "And if we join you," he said slowly, "what guarantee do we have that you will not treat us the same way? You are clearly more powerful than the. What stops you from simply replacing them as our masters?" Smile faded. She walked to a cabinet and removed a bottle and 2 glasses. She poured a dark amber liquid into each and offered one too. "Try this," she said. "It is called whiskey. Humans have been making it for over 1,000 years." Took the glass uncertainly. He sniffed the liquid. It smelled sharp and strange. He took a small sip. The taste was complex. Warmth spread through his chest. It was not unpleasant. "We could have come to this galaxy with weapons blazing," said. "We could have used our advantages to conquer everything we touched. Some of our people wanted exactly that." She sat down with her own glass. "But we made a choice. We decided that we did not want to be monsters. We did not want to become the thing we had always feared. Power without wisdom is just destruction. Strength without compassion is just cruelty." She raised her glass. "We want allies, friends, equals, not because we are weak, but because we have learned that cooperation builds something that conquest never can." Raised his own glass. He did not fully understand the gesture, but he understood the meaning behind it. "The will need time," he said. "We cannot break from the Dominion openly, not yet. We understand. We have been patient for 50 years. We can be patient a little longer." They drank together. Outside, the sun began to set over the human colony. Children were called home for dinner. Farmers finished their work. Life continued, ordinary and peaceful. But somewhere in the darkness of space, a war was coming. And when it arrived, the galaxy would learn the true meaning of human strength. The dead world of Acheron Null had not seen visitors in 10,000 years. Its surface was gray and lifeless. Its atmosphere was thin and cold. The ruins of the precursor facility stood like broken teeth against the dark sky. Commander Sierra Vance walked through the ancient corridors with a small team of soldiers behind her. Their boots echoed on floors that had been silent for longer than human civilization had existed. Dust hung in the air like frozen ghosts. Lieutenant was the youngest of the team. He had been a soldier for only 3 years. He had never seen real combat. He had certainly never walked through the ruins of an extinct civilization. "Commander," he said quietly, "what are we looking for?" Vance did not slow her pace. "We received a transmission. Someone or something called us here. We need to find out who and why." "And if it is a trap?" Vance smiled without humor. "Then we spring it and deal with the consequences." They descended deeper into the facility. The architecture changed as they went. The upper levels had been functional spaces, labs, living quarters, storage, but the lower levels were something else entirely. The walls were covered with symbols that seemed to move in the corner of the eye. The air grew colder. The silence grew heavier. Finally, they reached a vast circular chamber. The ceiling was so high it disappeared into darkness. The walls were lined with crystalline structures that pulsed with faint light, and in the center of the room, a figure waited. It was not alive. Not exactly. It was a projection, a hologram made of light and ancient technology. It had no fixed form. It shifted constantly, cycling through shapes that might have been faces or might have been something else entirely. "You came," the figure said. Its voice came from everywhere and nowhere. "I was not certain you would." Vance stepped forward, motioning for her team to stay back. "You called us, we answered. What do you want?" The figure seemed to consider the question. "I am the Watcher," it said. "I was created by the architects to observe and record. For 10,000 years I have watched the galaxy. I have seen empires rise and fall. I have seen species evolve and go extinct. I have watched and waited for the to emerge." Vance repeated, "You mean us humans?" "Yes, the architects found your ancestors long ago. They studied you. They feared you. They marked you for permanent quarantine and left you to die on your violent world." Lieutenant shifted uncomfortably. The other soldiers exchanged glances. "They were wrong," the Watcher continued. "You did not die, you grew stronger. You developed technology. You reached for the stars. And when you found the galaxy waiting for you, you did something the architects never predicted." The figure's form stabilized slightly, taking on something almost like a human shape. "You pretended to be weak. You smiled at those who insulted you. You accepted unfair treatment without complaint. You watched and learned and waited." Vance said nothing. There was nothing to say. "The architects designed you to be weapons," the Watcher said. "Your aggression, your adaptability, your refusal to accept defeat. These were engineered traits meant to create soldiers for wars that were never fought. When the architects fell, you were abandoned, forgotten. But you did not become weapons. You became something else, something the architects never imagined." "What did we become?" Vance asked quietly. The Watcher was silent for a long moment. "You became people," it said finally. "Beings capable of choosing what you would be. The architects made you to destroy. You chose to build. They made you to hate. You chose to hope. They made you to conquer. You chose to connect." The light in the chamber shifted. New images appeared in the air around them. Stars, planets, ships, a map of the galaxy. "They are gathering their fleet," the Watcher said. "In 3 days they will attack your colonies. They believe they can overwhelm you with numbers. They do not understand what you are." "We know about the fleet," Vance said. "We are preparing." "I can help you." The images zoomed in on a region of space. "The staging ground is hidden in the nebula. Their commanders believe this location is secret. If you strike first, you could end the war before it begins." More images appeared. Schematics, weapon systems, the precursor defense grid dormant for but still functional, still deadly. I can awaken the architect's weapons, the Watcher said. I can give you the power to destroy the utterly. Their fleet, their species, all of it, erased in an instant. Vance looked at the images. She thought about the colonies waiting for the attack. She thought about the families who would die if she chose wrong. She thought about the future of her species. She thought about what humans had always been capable of. No, she said. Lieutenant stared at her. The other soldiers shifted uncertainly. The Watcher's form flickered. No, it repeated. We do not need your weapons, Vance said. We never did. They will attack you. Without the defense grid, many of your people will die. Yes, some will. Vance's voice was steady. But we will not become the thing we hate. We will not use weapons of extinction. We will not commit genocide even against those who would destroy us. She stepped closer to the Watcher's projection. The architects made a mistake when they created us. They thought strength was all that mattered. They did not understand that true strength is the ability to hold back, to choose mercy when destruction is possible, to be more than what you were made to be. The Watcher was silent for a long time. The architects feared you, it said finally. They feared you would consume everything in your path. They never imagined you would choose restraint. No, Vance agreed. They never understood us at all. The Watcher's form shifted again. When it spoke, there was something almost like respect in its voice. Perhaps they should have feared something else. Perhaps they should have feared that you would make them obsolete. It raised one hand, and a small crystal appeared in the air before Vance. I will not awaken the weapons. That choice is yours to refuse, but I will give you this: the location of the fleet, their battle plans, their weaknesses. Vance took the crystal. It was warm in her palm. Why? Because the architects were wrong about many things, the Watcher said. But they were right about one thing. You are the future, not because you are the strongest, but because you are the only species I have ever seen that chooses what it wants to be. The projection began to fade. Go fight your war, and when you win, remember what you could have become. Remember what you chose to be instead. The light went out. The chamber fell silent. Vance looked at the crystal in her hand. 3 days until the fleet attacked. 3 days to get this information home. 3 days to save her people. She turned to her team. Let us move. We have a war to stop. The fleet emerged from the nebula like a swarm of angry wasps. 300 capital ships, thousands of support craft, millions of soldiers. The largest military force the Dominion had assembled in a century. Admiral the Younger commanded from his flagship, the Vengeance of Stars. He was the nephew of the ambassador who had been humiliated on the station. He had sworn to restore his family's honor with human blood. Signal all ships, he ordered. Begin the attack. The fleet moved toward the human colonies. Sensors showed no significant resistance. A handful of small patrol ships, a few orbital defense platforms, nothing that could stop the might of the Dominion. Admiral smiled with his mandibles. This would be easy. Then the Terran Defense Force arrived. They came out of hyperspace in perfect formation, 50 ships against 300. They were outnumbered 6-1. By every calculation, they should have retreated. They did not retreat. The human ships moved with impossible coordination. They split into groups, each targeting a specific section of the fleet. Their weapons fired with precision that they had never seen before. They seemed to know exactly where to strike. The first wave of ships died before they understood what was happening. The second wave tried to regroup. The third wave began to panic. Admiral watched in disbelief as his fleet crumbled around him. How is this possible? He demanded. They are outnumbered. They should be dying. His tactical officer's voice shook. Sir, their crews. They are reacting faster than our computers can track. It is like they know what we are going to do before we do it. On the bridge of the Terran flagship Resolution, General Myra watched the battle unfold on her display. Her crews worked in perfect sync, each ship supporting the others, each strike opening opportunities for the next. "Target their command vessels," she ordered. "Disable, do not destroy. We want prisoners, not corpses." The flagship was surrounded within minutes. Its weapons were destroyed. Its engines were crippled. Admiral ordered his personal guard to fight to the last soldier. They did not get the chance. Terran Marines boarded the ship through breaches cut by precision weapons. They moved through the corridors like ghosts. Soldiers who tried to fight were disabled with non-lethal force. Those who surrendered were secured and protected. Admiral was found in his command center, surrounded by the bodies of his guards. He held a ceremonial blade in his hand. He expected to die with honor. A human soldier stepped through the door. She removed her helmet, revealing dark skin and silver hair. "General." "Admiral," she said calmly, "your fleet is destroyed, your soldiers are captured, the war is over." Raised his blade. "I will not surrender to vermin, kill me if you can." Did not move. She stood there, unarmed, unafraid. "I did not come here to kill you," she said. "I came here to offer you a choice." His mandibles clicked with confusion. "A choice." "Your dominion is broken, your fleet is gone, your allies have abandoned you. By every law of conquest I could claim your worlds, I could enslave your people, I could erase your species from history." She stepped closer. The blade was inches from her throat. She did not seem to notice. "But that is not why we came to the stars. We did not cross the galaxy to become conquerors. We came to build something better, and we would rather have you as partners than as slaves." Stared at her. For a long moment nothing happened. Then slowly, very slowly, he lowered his blade. 5 years passed. The galaxy changed. The new compact was signed on the same station where Commander Vance had caught the ceremony brought together humans and a dozen other species. Former enemies stood side by side and promised to build a future together. The chamber where the Elder had fired his weapon now housed a school. Young beings of every species sat together, learning each other's languages and histories, learning to see each other as people instead of threats. Commander Sierra Vance, her hair now fully gray, stood at the back of the chamber and watched. General joined her. "Think it will last?" asked. Vance smiled. "It does not have to last forever. It just has to last long enough for them to forget why they were afraid of us." She paused. "And long enough for them to realize they never needed to be." Across the room, a young child approached a human teacher. The child pointed at a display showing the famous image. The woman catching the steam rising from her palm, the calm expression on her face. "What happened?" the child asked. "Why did she not kill him?" The teacher knelt down to the child's level. "Because that is not who humans are," she said gently. "We are not the monsters the galaxy expected. We never were." The child tilted their head, but she was strong enough. "Yes," the teacher agreed. "She was strong enough to kill him, but she was also strong enough not to. That is the difference." "What difference?" The teacher smiled. "Anyone can destroy. It takes no special courage to hurt someone weaker than you. The truly strong do not prove their power by causing pain. They prove it by showing mercy." She looked at the image of Vance extending her hand, the resting on her palm like an offering. She could have killed him. She chose to give it back. That is what being human means. The child was quiet for a moment. Then they nodded slowly, as if understanding something important. Outside the station, the stars burned cold and bright. Ships from 100 worlds passed through space that had once been divided by war and fear. Humans walked beside, traded with species that had once been enemies. The galaxy was not perfect. It would never be perfect, but it was better than it had been. And somewhere, watching from the ruins of a dead world, the Watcher observed it all. It had seen empires rise and fall for 10,000 years. It had watched species destroy themselves over and over again. It had expected them to do the same. They had not. They had done something unprecedented, something the architects had never imagined possible. They had chosen to be more than what they were made to be. The Watcher recorded this observation in its ancient memory banks. It did not know what the future would bring. It did not know if the peace would last. But for the first time it felt something it did not have a word for. Perhaps it thought this was what the humans called hope.